Around 6 months ago, I decided to start my own project with one big goal in mind: to build a budget PC for the price of around 200 euros. This is the story of how I managed to build it and managed to horrendously fail as well at the same time. Stay tuned. So around half a year ago, I found this deal on the Dutch eBay called Marktplaats for a used HP Desktop Pro 420 GT, HP ProDesk 400 G2 for around 90 euros, which is a pretty good deal. This is a pre-built kind of office PC with a processor from 5 or 6 years ago. Some decent other specs that works well as like a text editor and casual browser's computer. But I thought, I have a laptop, I don't have a gaming PC. Let me see if I can like snazz out this computer and turn it into something I can use to play some games. I'll show you. This is the computer right here. And it's all torn apart and it doesn't look too good. But as you can see, there's no graphics card in it. And that's because I had a little bit of a problem when I was being a bit lazy when testing it for the benchmarks, but you'll get to that in the later part of the videos. So let's get into the computer and see what's inside and what parts it has. Powering the computer is an i5-4590S. It runs at 3 GHz. It's a processor that's, I think, around 6 years old at this point. It has a stock cooler on it. It's not the fanciest thing ever, but you know what? Gaming is mainly about the graphics card and less about the processor, so it should work fine in this build. Next things to next, we have the main upgrade for this build, which is the 90 euro 4GB RX 580 Sapphire Nitro. So I managed to pick this up from someone who was selling them from used. He said video editing rigs. It might have been a mining card and he just didn't want to tell me. But you know what? For the sake of this video, it's as cheap as I could find it, so it doesn't really matter. Next up, we have the RAM. There was 8 GB of DDR3 included, which is another big thing with these pre-builds. A lot of them had 4 gigs only, so it was really great that I could find one that had already 8 gigs pre-installed, so I didn't have to buy any other RAM, because it's always nice to have a matching kit of RAM instead of having to buy extra yourself. Next is the second component that I had to buy for this, which is the power supply. So I bought this power supply for 15 euros. It's a VS650. It's 80 plus certified, but honestly, listen when I say this, do not buy a power supply used for this cheap. There's ought to be something wrong with it, and I do not trust it to this day. So when you're building a budget build like this, make sure to go with something that's like 80 plus bronze certified at least, and get something that's better, because the power supply, that's where all the electricity is coming from for your build. So make sure you don't cheap out on that part. So next we have the storage. So for storage, 2 500 GB hard drives were included. These hard drives were, I guess, old. I think 6 years old or something since the PC was built. They were there from the beginning, the guy said. So I decided to include a SSD just to speed up the system and just to run off the operating system, to run Windows off, which is a 240 GB Crucial MX500 SSD that I had lying around. So this is around 50 euros. I included this in the price, even though I didn't buy it because I already had it. But say you were to buy it, it would cost you around 50 euros at this point. So now let's go straight to the build process of the computer. So the build process of the computer, this is an interesting part because it wasn't easy. It was very tedious. If you look at the computer, it's quite small when you compare it to the size of the graphics card. It's a full-size graphics card, but it's I guess you could call it a micro ATX case, as the pre-built is made to be small and fit on desks inside offices. It's not meant for big graphics cards. So the power supply was an easy fix. It was just easy. Screw it out, screw it back in, and then you have your new power supply in. But the graphics card was a whole nother experience. So basically, as you can see here in this time lapse, I put in the graphics card, which required some turning, twisting, and slotting it in just in the right spot. But then the next problem I encountered was getting in the power cables, because as you can see, the frame kind of blocks the entry point of the cables. So what I had to do eventually is to bend the frame so that I could fit in the power cables for the graphics card, and eventually it did fit. And it worked just fine, but it wasn't a very elegant solution. And as you can see in this clip, getting on the side panel was a lot harder now that I bent the case, because it was sticking out and I'd have to really put a lot of force on the side panel in order to get it to stick on and stay on. So now let's look at the performance of the computer. At least that would be the case if I was able to benchmark it. But you see, that's where there's a small problem, which is I may have broken the graphics card in the process of playing some games and finding out what a random whirring noise was in the computer. Here's a dramatic reenactment of the situation. I was playing some Warzone, seeing how it would react to the game, seeing how it would run on the graphics card. It was working fine, when all of a sudden there was a strange whirring sound in the computer, which is like a brrr, just spinning in the computer. So I decided to open up the side panel, which was it was really warm as well. But I mean, that's just the bad ventilation in the case, because it's not meant for really hot temperatures. And I see the fan of the GPU is hitting this small cable. So I decided to just kind of remove the cable, because the fan is spinning at such a high speed. It ended up just popping off, and as you can see now, let me show you, it is just detached. So there it is. As you can see, this one's attached, this one is gone. It just popped straight off, and I'm sure the card still works, but it's I don't know, it's just been lying in a drawer. I've been too scared to try it, but at this point I have nothing to lose, so I might as well make a follow-up video and see how the computer works. One thing I can still do is show you a very, very nice montage of the completed computer, even though there's no footage of how it actually runs. So I hope you enjoy this beautiful montage. So based on my personal experiences with the computer, I can tell you a couple things of how I think it ran and how I think it did. So if you were to consider building a computer like this for yourself and buying a pre-built and switching out components, I'd say it's a good way to get used to getting into the computer world. It's a good way to familiarize yourself with components and computers, as it's kind of a cheap way. There's a lot of stuff you don't have to build. There's only a few things you need to include, so you can probably follow some tutorials online as well. But with a model like this, the processor was dated, and you could tell when you would do things like video edit, for example. I tried running a video editing program, DaVinci Resolve. It wouldn't run too well because that's mainly CPU based, as well as running multiple things at once, like running Discord as well as a game. The game would completely run into the throttle point of the CPU, and it would just start stuttering like crazy. So I could really only run one task at the same time on the computer. Which I really thought was a shame, as it was quite powerful with the GPU, as it could run multiple games. But now that I've kind of finished this project of this computer, I have actually built my own computer, and it's another one of those crazy stories where I started it out in June this year, and now it's December, and I only finished it in November, so it took me like half a year to get everything of that round as well. It's been a crazy adventure, but I will show you actually this clip right now of how the computer looks like. It's a tiny computer, and that was intentional, but it took some ordering parts from China and some insight from some Discord groups and Reddit pages to actually get that to be built. But I will post a video on that coming 2 months, I don't know, stay tuned, maybe you'll see it. But that's been this video, so thank you for watching, and I guess I'll see you another time.